There is a fear that millions of people in Britain carry quietly. Not a dramatic fear, not one they talk about over dinner or mention at work, just a low, persistent, private unease that switches on the moment a bridge appears on the road ahead. The lanes narrow, the water appears, the barrier becomes the only thing between them and whatever is below, and something in the body, something old and honest, says, "This is wrong. You should not be up here. You should not be doing this." It even has a name, Gephyrophobia, the fear of bridges, and in a country strung together by estuary crossings and high river spans, it is far more common than people admit, because here, the fear is not imaginary. Britain's biggest bridges sit on the edge of the Atlantic, across open firths where the wind has nothing to slow it down, and they have the closure records and the incidents to prove it. Today, we're counting down the 10 bridges in Britain that scare drivers the most, not the tallest, not the most structurally unsafe, the ones that most consistently, most reliably get under the skin of the people who cross them. Hit subscribe if you want more like this. We do this every week. Let's start with a bridge that shuts so often the locals have nearly stopped noticing. Number 10. The Orwell Bridge, Suffolk. The Orwell Bridge carries the A14 high over the River Orwell just south of Ipswich. Around 60,000 vehicles cross it every day, and it is a direct artery from the port of Felixstowe, Britain's biggest container port, to the rest of the country. It is a long, sweeping concrete viaduct, and the drop from the deck to the river below is enough to put a knot in most people's stomachs before they have even reached the middle. But the real story of the Orwell is the wind. When the gusts get strong enough, the entire bridge closes, because out in that open country, there is a genuine risk of a high-sided vehicle being pushed clean over. For years, the threshold was so cautious that even a moderate storm could shut it completely, and there was no easy way to filter out just the lorries, so the safest option was to close it to everyone. And when it shuts, the whole A14 empties down into Ipswich town centre, turning a quick crossing into hours of gridlock. For a port that never stops moving freight, that is not an inconvenience, it is money sitting still. Engineers eventually ran wind tunnel studies and added a reduced speed limit to keep it open in more conditions than before. But the underlying fact has not changed. When it is bad enough, it shuts, and the official reason printed in black and white is the risk of a vehicle being blown over the side. Now imagine crossing in a crosswind. The river is far below. The message signs ahead are flashing a speed limit you did not expect. You can feel the side of the car being nudged by the gusts again and again, each one a little firmer than the last. You ease off, you hold your lane, you keep one eye on the signs, because the next word they flash might be closed. And if a bridge that empties a major port route into a town centre sounds like a headache, the next one lost something far more reassuring. It lost the right to carry heavy lorries at all. Number 9. The M48 Severn Bridge, England/Wales. The original Severn Bridge opened in 1966, an elegant suspension span linking Gloucestershire to South Wales, across one of the most powerful tidal estuaries anywhere on Earth. The Severn has the second highest tidal range in the world, and the bridge that crosses it is a genuinely beautiful piece of engineering. It is also dangerously exposed, strung out high across open water, with almost nothing around it to break the weather. The estuary funnels wind straight across the deck, so the bridge closes early, while lesser winds would still let traffic through on crossings elsewhere. And the danger is not theoretical. In early 2020, a sudden spike in the wind blew a lorry onto its side with the driver still in the cab, and the bridge had to close in both directions, because they could not even recover the overturned vehicle until the wind finally dropped enough to make it safe. Then came a quieter but bigger blow. Because of concerns about the condition of its main cables, the great steel ropes that hold the whole structure up, lorries over 7.5 tons were banned from the old crossing altogether and rerouted onto the newer motorway bridge nearby. The 1966 bridge still stands, still graceful, still carrying cars, but it can no longer be trusted with the heavy weight it once carried every single day, and that quiet demotion tells you everything about how hard the estuary has worked on it over the decades. Now imagine being in a tall van, the only thing on the deck, the towers rising ahead of you, the estuary mud shining far below at low tide. A gust hits you side on, and the van twitches under your hands. You correct gently and ease off the accelerator. And in that moment, you understand exactly why the heavy lorries are not allowed up here anymore. You can feel the same force that blew one onto its side pressing against your own door. And if a bridge that lost the right to carry lorries shows you what the Severn wind can do, the next one is where that same wind has actually pushed a vehicle right across the carriageway. Number 8. The Forth Road Bridge, Edinburgh. For half a century, the Forth Road Bridge was the main crossing over the Firth of Forth, and the Firth is one of the windiest stretches of road anywhere in Scotland. It is a long, high-suspension bridge, and on a calm summer day, the views out across the water to the Great Red Railway Bridge beside it are glorious. On a bad winter day, it is another matter entirely. It is routinely closed to high-sided and wind-vulnerable vehicles whenever the gusts climb past about 50 miles an hour, which in a Scottish winter is an utterly ordinary, almost weekly event. And the reason for that caution is written into the bridge's own history. Lorries have genuinely been blown over up here. In one of the most alarming incidents, a lorry was pushed clean across from one carriageway to the other in the early hours of the morning, tearing through around 40 meters of the central barrier in the process. The bridge had already been closed to lorries because of the wind. The vehicle was up there anyway, and the driver later faced charges for it. That is the pattern with the Forth. The closures are not bureaucratic overcaution dreamed up by someone in an office. They exist because every time the warnings were ignored, the wind delivered precisely the outcome the warnings had described. The bridge has decades of evidence for exactly what it can do to anything tall and light caught on its deck at the wrong moment. Now imagine it is 2 in the morning. The barriers are down, the bridge officially closed to high-sided traffic, but somebody has looked at the empty road and decided they will be fine. They pull out onto the deck. The wind is screaming off the North Sea. The cab begins to lean in a way that does not straighten when the wheel turns. And there is, very suddenly, almost nothing that can be done about the next few seconds. And if the old Forth crossing teaches you why those warnings exist, the next bridge was built specifically to beat that wind, which makes the days it still has to turn vehicles away all the more telling. Number 7. The Queensferry crossing. Edinburgh right, alongside the old bridge, stands the Queensferry crossing. Opened in 2017, a vast cable-stayed structure that cost over £1.3 billion. It was fitted with tall windshields, around 3.5 meters high, running almost the entire length of the deck. Their whole purpose is to throw the gusts up and over the traffic, so the bridge can stay open in weather that would once have shut its older neighbour completely. And mostly, it works brilliantly. It has stayed open to cars in winds that would have closed the old crossing well over 100 times since it opened. It holds high-sided vehicles in gusts up to around 70 miles an hour, far beyond what the old bridge could manage. On paper, it is one of the most weather-resilient major bridges anywhere in the world, and most of the time, the people crossing it never give the wind a second thought. But here is the genuinely unsettling part. They built one of the most wind-resistant bridges on the planet, and the Firth of Forth still serves up conditions strong enough to push it toward its limits. The deck sensors have logged gusts over 50 miles an hour again and again, and on a number of occasions, over 70. The engineers solved the problem about as well as it can be solved, and the Firth simply kept producing more wind. It does not care how clever your shielding is, it just keeps testing it every single winter. Now, imagine crossing in a high-sided vehicle in a gale, watching the windshields do their job, feeling oddly, almost smugly protected. The cab is steady, the road is open, the engineering is working, and then you reach a gap in the shielding, where the barrier steps down for a tower. For one long moment, the full force of the Firth finds the side of your vehicle, shoves it hard toward the next lane, and then the shielding picks it up again and the calm returns. That 1 second tells you what the bridge is holding back the whole way across. And if the most advanced bridge in Britain still gets tested by the wind, the next one offers no such protection, just enormous length, an exposed estuary, and a deck that drivers swear they can feel moving beneath them. Number 6. The Humber Bridge, East Yorkshire. When it opened in 1981, the Humber Bridge was the longest single-span suspension bridge in the world, a record it held for nearly 2 decades. It still stretches well over 2 kilometers across the Humber estuary, and from the middle of it, there is no land close on either side, just a vast, flat expanse of grey-brown water below, the towers shrinking into the haze behind you, and the far bank sitting impossibly far away in front. A bridge that long and that exposed is designed to move. It has to. A rigid structure of that size would tear itself apart in the wind, so instead it is built to flex, to bend with the gusts and the temperature and the weight of the traffic crossing it. Engineers know this is exactly what keeps it safe. Drivers, on the other hand, can feel it. In a strong wind, people describe a faint, continuous sway, a sense of the whole deck breathing gently under the wheels. For anyone uneasy with heights, the combination of the openness, the long drop, and that subtle, persistent movement makes for a genuinely uncomfortable few minutes. It is not dramatic incidents that put the Humber on this list. There is no famous disaster here, no viral footage. It is the sensation itself and the sheer time you spend inside it. 2 kilometers is a very long way to feel a bridge shifting underneath you, with nowhere to stop and no quick way off once you have committed to the crossing. Now imagine you are halfway across, fully committed, the towers behind you and the far bank still distant. The estuary is wide and grey beneath you, and the wind comes through in a long, low gust that you feel before you hear. The deck moves, gently but unmistakably. You remind yourself it is meant to do that. It is designed to do that. The engineers planned for this exact movement. It does not help quite as much as you had hoped. And if length and sway make the Humber a test of nerve, the next bridge adds something you cannot prepare for. A curve you cannot see around on a climb that hides the road ahead entirely. Number 5. The Skye Bridge, Scottish Highlands. The Skye Bridge connects the Scottish mainland to the Isle of Skye, and since it opened in 1995, it has been the gateway to one of the most beautiful islands in Britain. For most of its length, it runs low and level, hopping across a small island in the middle of the crossing. But the main span is the thing that catches drivers out, and it catches them out badly. It rises in a single dramatic concrete arch around 35 meters above the water at its highest point, and it is steep enough that as you climb it, the road ahead simply disappears over the crest into open sky. For a few seconds near the top, you are driving uphill toward nothing on a structure that curves as it climbs, with no view at all of what is waiting on the other side. Is there traffic? A cyclist? A stopped car? You cannot see. You just keep climbing toward the blank brightness above the crest and trust that the road continues. Add the famous Highland weather, the wind funneling in off Loch Alsh, and the sheer drop to the water on either side, and a crossing that lasts less than a minute becomes one people genuinely remember. Plenty of visitors describe their first time over it as far more nerve-wracking than they ever expected for somewhere so scenic. It looks like a postcard from a distance. It feels like something else entirely from behind the wheel, especially the first time, when you have no idea the road is about to vanish in front of you. Now, imagine climbing the arch, the engine working harder against the gradient, the tarmac ahead, tilting up and then simply ending against the sky. You cannot see the descent. You cannot see oncoming traffic until the last possible moment. You hold your speed. You trust the road is still there. You crest the top. The far side suddenly drops away below you, and you let out a breath you did not realize you were holding. And if a bridge that hides the road ahead unsettles you, the next one narrows everything right down. The lanes, the margins, and the room for error. Number 4. The Tamar Bridge, Cornwall/Plymouth. The Tamar Bridge has carried the A38 across the River Tamar since 1962, linking Saltash in Cornwall to Plymouth in Devon. When it opened, it was the longest suspension bridge in Britain, with a main span of over 300 meters, and it was the first major suspension bridge built in the country after the Second World War. Today, tens of thousands of vehicles pour across it every day, high above the tidal water, right beside Brunel's famous old railway bridge. What makes the Tamar intimidating is not really its height, it is the sense of tightness. The lanes feel narrow, especially for larger vehicles, and meeting a lorry or a bus coming the other way can feel uncomfortably close enough that drivers instinctively lean away from the door. The bridge was later widened and strengthened, with extra lanes cantilevered out on either side to add capacity and make it safer. But for many people, the experience is still one of threading carefully across a high, busy, constricted crossing with the river, a very long way down through the gaps in the deck. It is a working bridge too, not a scenic one. It is tolled, it is often busy, and it sits on one of the main routes in and out of Cornwall, so you are rarely crossing it alone. You are crossing it in traffic, at speed, with vehicles close on every side, and the open drop just beyond the barrier. Now imagine easing across in the inside lane, a high-sided lorry running alongside you, so near that you could almost touch it. Through the gaps in the structure, the water glints far below. The towers slide past overhead. You hold your line. You do not drift an inch toward the lorry, and you do not drift toward the edge either. You do not look down at the river through the side of the deck. You just keep moving, steady and central, until the far bank finally arrives and the lanes open out again. And if a narrow, high crossing keeps your hands tight on the wheel, the next bridge carries something heavier than fear. It carries a history that changed the way these bridges are built. Number 3. The Cleddau Bridge, Pembrokeshire. The Cleddau Bridge soars high over the Cleddau estuary in West Wales, linking the towns around Milford Haven and saving drivers an enormous detour around the head of the waterway. It stands well above the water to let shipping pass beneath it, including the large vessels that serve the area's industry. And that height is exactly what makes it so daunting for so many people. From the deck, the estuary opens out wide and far below, with little to break the sense of exposure. But the Cleddau also carries a genuinely sobering history, and it is a history that reaches far beyond Wales. During its construction in 1970, part of the structure collapsed, killing workers on the site. It was one of a series of box girder bridge failures around the world at that time. Similar collapses happened on bridges of the same design in other countries within the same period, and together they forced engineers everywhere to completely rethink how this kind of bridge was designed and built. The lessons learned from those disasters, the Cleddau among them, changed bridge engineering for good. The bridge that was eventually completed is safe and has served the region faithfully for decades, but that origin gives it a weight beyond its height. When you cross it, you are crossing a structure whose very construction taught the world something hard about the limits of its own design. Drivers crossing in strong winds, high above the open estuary, feel that exposure keenly even without knowing the history. Now imagine being up among the gulls, the estuary spread out far below you, the wind pressing steadily and unrelentingly against the side of the car. There is nowhere to pull in. There is nothing to break the long, clear view down to the water. You keep your speed steady. You keep your eyes fixed on the road ahead, not the drop. And you wait for the land to finally rise up and meet you again on the far side, where the exposure ends and the ground feels solid once more. And if a high wind-exposed crossing with a sobering past unsettles you, the runner-up is one of the most exposed major bridges in the entire country. Number 2. The Erskine Bridge, Glasgow. The Erskine Bridge carries traffic high over the River Clyde, to the west of Glasgow, a long, slender box girder bridge, built specifically to let ships pass underneath it on their way up and down the river. That requirement for shipping clearance is the whole reason it sits so high, and it means the bridge rises a considerable height above the water, with long, gradual approaches at each end that leave you exposed to the wind for the entire crossing, from the moment you start climbing to the moment you come back down. It is a bridge that feels high and open in a way that genuinely gets to people. The barriers feel low relative to the drop. The fall to the Clyde below is significant, and the slender, stretched-out design gives the whole thing a feeling of lightness that does nothing to settle the nerves. On a windy day, crossing it in an exposed vehicle, a van, a caravan, a motorbike, is an experience drivers simply do not forget. The width of the deck and the height combine into something that feels far more precarious than the engineering actually is. Like the other great river crossings on this list, the Erskine is subject to restrictions and closures when the weather turns severe. The same wind that makes it merely uncomfortable on an ordinary blustery day can make it genuinely dangerous for high-sided vehicles when a storm comes through, and the authorities act accordingly. Now imagine climbing the long approach, the Clyde slowly opening up beneath you, the bridge stretching far ahead and far behind with no shelter anywhere along its length. The wind is steady and strong against the side of the car, pushing without pause. You hold your line across the long, high deck, gust after gust after gust. You do not let yourself relax, not yet. Only when the road finally tips down and comes back to solid earth on the far bank do your shoulders drop and your grip on the wheel loosen. And if the most exposed crossing in the west sounds like the limit of what a bridge can ask of you, the number 1 spot goes to the single stretch of water that has been beating engineers for half a century. Number 1, the Firth of Forth Crossings, Edinburgh. We have already met the old Forth Road Bridge and the new Queensferry crossings separately on this list. But to understand why this one stretch of water tops the entire countdown, you have to see them together as what they really are. This is the most wind-battered major crossing point in all of Britain, and the two bridges standing side by side tell the whole story between them. Think about everything we have covered. This is a place where lorries have genuinely been blown over, where one was pushed clean across from one carriageway into the other, through 40 metres of central barrier in the dead of night, where the old bridge has to close to high-sided traffic so routinely that the closures are simply part of the rhythm of the Scottish winter, barely making the local news anymore, and where the brand new bridge, built at vast expense, with some of the most advanced windshielding anywhere in the world, designed specifically to defeat this exact problem, still records gust after gust, strong enough to push it toward its limits, winter after winter. This is the heart of what scares drivers about bridges in Britain. Not just height, though it is high, not just length, though it is long, it is the wind, relentless, powerful, funneling down a Firth that has been testing engineers for generations. They built the old bridge, and over the decades the wind beat it down to a restricted, aging crossing. They built one of the most sophisticated bridges on the planet right next to it, and the wind is still up there, every single winter, pressing against the shields and proving it has not gone anywhere. Now imagine a winter night on the Firth of Forth, the wind howling in off the North Sea. Two great bridges side by side, one closed to high vehicles, one holding the line with its shields straining against the dark. And you, crossing high above the black water, feeling the gusts shove at the car, watching the lights of the towers sway against the sky. You understand, in your gut, exactly why this is the crossing that earns the most respect of all. The engineers gave it everything they had. The wind is still winning the argument. So there you have it, 10 bridges, 10 different versions of the same fear. Some are high, some are long, some are narrow, some carry history in every crossing, and some sit in places where the wind has been winning arguments with engineers for half a century. The fear of bridges is real. Plenty of people in Britain carry it. And the bridges on this list are not just structures. They are the specific places where that fear becomes impossible to ignore. Some people grip the wheel and count the seconds until solid ground returns. Some close their eyes and let someone else drive. And some look at the bridge, look at the sky, and decide that wherever they were going can wait for a calmer day. They're not wrong, they're just honest. Thanks for watching.